Craig is a certified lover boy. He is. I mean, Naomi was the one and he wanted to spend the rest of his life with her. Natalie was the one and he wanted to spend the rest of his life with her. Paige was the one and he wanted to spend the rest of his life with her. Whoever is next will be the one and he will want to spend the rest of his life with her. Hello, my beautiful sisters. I'm all kinds of excited today. Can you tell? I don't know what it is. New year, new energy. I've had 18 shots of espresso today. I'm in my new little podcast studio. If you're watching on YouTube, we got the new digs. David and I set this up over the holiday break because we were losing our mind. We were stuck in the vortex. I'm sure you all can relate to not knowing what day, hour, year that it is. Yeah, but we made it. Happy 2025. Can you believe it? Before we get into 2025, let's just talk about the holidays, Christmas, New Year's. Honestly, nothing really major went on for me over here. I did change my clothes. I did change out of that green sweatshirt that you see me wear all the time, but only because I bought it in a different color. So this is my red sweatshirt. So I'll now be going back and forth between the green and red sweatshirt and wearing the same clothes every single day. But other than that, nothing crazy happened over my holiday break, except for the fact that I thought I was going to have to go to the emergency room last night. Nothing crazy. Just a little emergency room visit. All right, my contact girlies are going to get this one. And it is such a conundrum, because there are moments in time where your contact just decides it's going to flex its muscle, show you who's boss, and fold up and get stuck underneath your eyeball. And that's what happened to me last night. I was in the shower. My eyes were feeling a little dry, because I was just breezing about my day, doing all the things, and it got a little dry in there. So I was taking my makeup off and I closed my eyes and I was scrubbing my eyes, which rookie mistake looking back, but I was really scrub it dub, wanted to get all of that mascara out of my eyelashes to just glaze myself up and get into my nighttime routine that I do at 4:30 in the afternoon. But anyway, I was scrubbing it up and all of a sudden I felt it. I felt it shrivel up like a prune, and then slip up underneath that eyelid. And I'm like, oh, dear Lord, here we go. And it's happened to me plenty of times before. And it's been as little as I just have to move it down a little bit and it pops out. On the other hand, one time I literally dug in my eye for an hour, woke up with a swollen eye, had to drive 5 hours home from West Virginia and cried the whole time. So really a range of emotion when that kind of thing happens to you. So I get out of the shower. I'm looking for it. I can't find it. I'm like, great. My contact has rolled past my eye, has somehow traveled up into my brain, and is going to damage my frontal lobe. That's the spiral that I went down. And also, you're sitting there and you're just scratching at your eye. And I'm like, I'm going to wake up with another balloon on my face. I'm not bringing that kind of energy into 2025. Are you kidding me? January 1st with a swollen eyeball, but I was scared because I thought it was stuck up there somewhere. I had no idea. I was crying. I was putting eye drops in. I'm like, I'm going to go blind. This is it. This is how it ends for me. I'm going to wake up tomorrow like Cotton Eye Joe. I don't know if Cotton Eye Joe had vision problems, but in my mind he does because, it just makes sense. Obviously. I was telling David, I really don't want to go blind, but I really don't want to go to the ER. What's worse, going to the ER at 8 o'clock at night, knowing that you're going to be there for, 8 years, or being blind? So I just decided to throw caution to the wind, go to sleep. And if I wake up the next morning as Cotton Eye Joe, it was just going to be new year, new me. I mean, thankfully, I think that it has fallen out. A lot of you guys gave me some great tips and tricks on how to get it out, like putting another contact in and that pulls down. I don't know. Are contacts magnetic and that's how that works? I don't know. But I didn't wake up with a swollen eyeball and I put new contacts in and I can see the world. So I'm just going to pretend like it didn't happen. I'm going to pretend like it didn't happen. And that's how I ended 2024. I also ended 2024 not really caring that it was New Year's Eve. Who stays up until honestly, who stays up until midnight anymore? And if you do, reveal yourselves. And what do you do? Drugs? Probably. I mean, some of you. Probably. Maybe some alcoholic beverages. That makes it a little easier to stay up until midnight, but like not in this sober household. There ain't no way. Unless I'm getting M&M wasted, because we have been like binge eating the mini M&Ms for the past 12 months, I can't go to sleep unless I have some popcorns and mini M&Ms. But anyways, yeah, coming into 2025, do we have any New Year's resis? I don't do resis. The only resis I do is a Texas Roadhouse, baby. Yeah. Maybe some Olive Garden resis, but like resolutions, no. You know why? Because you only do it for like 4 weeks and then you forget, or you disassociate, or you have pretend amnesia and you don't do them anymore. So if you don't want to do them, don't do them. I don't know where this pep in my step came from, because y'all know normally I'm like hanging at a 5 out of 10. I'm feeling like 10 out of 10 right now. I think it's the new setup. I think it's the chair. It's comfortable. I feel like I can just let her rip. And that's what we're going to do now, okay? Honestly, not enough happened over this holiday break to go into a full-blown, this is a full-blown episode, but we're going to do 2 deep dives today instead of like the pop 3 and then final thoughts, because we have to talk about Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, and then we have to talk about Conover and Paige DeSorbo, but also I did get some tea on Southern Charm, the JT of it all, because it's not really making sense right now why Madison is so mad at JT. Well, let me just say, I got a DM from Madison LeCroy, and I'm just going to be honest with you guys. I'm too scared to say it in this public of a forum, but I am going to talk about it on Bravo Friday, which you can subscribe to, patreon.com/Morgan's Pop Talks. If you're on the Bravo tier, if you're on the Love You Like Assist tier, you will get the tea straight from Madison LeCroy this Friday. All right, let's start with Paige and Craig. Paige DeSorbo made the announcement earlier this week on her podcast Giggly Squad that her and her boyfriend of 3 years, Bravo heartthrob Craig Conover, are no longer together. And we are in mourning. I mean, is anybody really, are you surprised, is my question. Because you can be sad and not surprised, which is like the boat that I'm currently in right now. They were together for 3 years, but the main juxtaposition, if you will, was their living situation. It was always at the center of their problems, right? And there had always been these rumors, more so in recent months, but they always denied it. And can I say something? Is this a safe space? Because I would call myself like a half giggler. Like I'm not tuning in every week, but I do love Giggly Squad. I think it's an amazing podcast. I think Hannah and Paige are so talented and captivating. Their personalities are just so captivating, and I love that podcast. I don't listen to any podcast every single week, including my own. Like I don't even listen back to it anymore because I used to do that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I hate listening to myself. You guys get it. But anyways, I'm not a Paige hater or a Giggly Squad hater, but I'm feeling really gaslit right now by some of the gigglers, because some of the gigglers were in my comments whenever I did the video about the Summer House trailer, right? And Paige is crying and she's confiding in Sierra, and she's talking about this fear that she has if her and Craig break up, that she would lose everything. Now she wouldn't, right? Like we can all see that not stock is the only word that's coming to mind. I don't mean it in like a derogatory way, but like she is much more than her relationship status, right? Like I said, she has a successful podcast in Giggly Squad. She's on Summer House. She's fashionista, fashion queen, doing all these Amazon lives. So I didn't think anything of it. But, when I posted the video, I was like, even Bravo's cashing in on these Craig and Paige breakup rumors, because there always seem to be rumors surrounding them. And, we talked about it with Bravo and Cocktails, which I'm going to get to that in a second. But I'm like, okay, do Bravo producers just see breakup rumors as like, an easy gotcha, low hanging fruit, where if anybody who watches Summer House or Southern Charm see in a trailer that there's trouble in paradise between Craig and Paige, that means that they'll tune into the show, right? Well, I was saying that. I was saying, because they've kept denying these breakup rumors and yada, yada, yada. But Bravo seems to be leaning into it too because they know people are talking about it. And I did have gigglers in my comments that are like, gigglers, no. They are great. They are phenomenal. They are never going to break up. If you were a giggler, you would know, Morgan. And I'm just like, okay, like, I'm not saying that they're going to break up, but now they have. Okay? So I'm just feeling a little gaslit. Also in the Summer House trailer, we see Craig and Paige have a conversation, and Craig says to her, "You can't choose work on it all the time." And she says, "Am I supposed to apologize for being strong and independent?" Now, it's tricky. It's tricky because I never saw it working out. I'm sorry. And I held my tongue because I didn't want to be a hater, because I didn't want to get bombarded by the gigglers, because I do love you guys. I'm a half giggler myself, but maybe it's because I have my own personal experience, and it's not a blanket, statement. I know that just because I was in a 5-year long distance relationship doesn't mean that my relationship pans out the way that everybody else's relationship pans out. However, I do understand the complications and compromises that come along with being in a long distance relationship. My relationship lasted 5 years. Being long distance, we were on 2 different continents. Okay. And, the first year, we didn't really have in-depth conversations about whether or not we were going to live in the US or if we were going to go to London. I think we were both very open, but it also was very new and early into our relationship. It wasn't the type of time to have that type of conversation. But then you get into year 2 and year 3, and I feel like that's when you can start to really tell what the longevity of your relationship is, how you guys handle seasons of change in your life, how you navigate conflict. You find those things out in time. And, I remember getting to the 3-year mark with David and I, and we were like, okay, well, we need to have conversations about what our future looks like and where we're going to be. David's family was in South Africa. He was in London. I was here in the US. And we pretty much said, look, we're not going to London because it doesn't make sense for both of us to be away from our families. And David was like, well, I pretty much have decided that I don't want to spend the rest of my life in South Africa either. He loves it, don't get me wrong, but, it just wasn't going to be the right fit. So we knew from that point in our life that we were working together to get into this next phase of our relationship, to get into the next steps. I feel like if I'm going into year 3, 4, 5, however long, and I still don't know if we're going to live in London, the US, or Africa, or we can't even disagree on it, that's a red flag for me. In fact, a little earlier in our relationship, I would say 2 years into our relationship, I wasn't like pressing David for answers because I knew that we weren't there yet, but I was like gauging his interest, right? And, he couldn't give me any answers, and we broke up for 5 days. He says we didn't break up, but like we didn't text each other for 5 days. So in my opinion, we broke up for 5 days. But that is like marriage 101, right? Deciding to be in the same place, unless you do this celebrity thing where you have enough money and enough means to live in both places, which is where Bravo and Cocktails got me, right? Because you guys listened to the episode and I was like, I don't know. I just don't think that you can wait until, you're ready to get engaged to make the decision. I think the decision has to be made. And she made a good point where she said, look, they're both riding the Bravo wave. Summer House isn't going to last forever. Southern Charm isn't going to last forever. And when both of those things kind of slow down and they're not using that income anymore, they'll be more ready to move and live in the same place. But that ended up not happening. Their paths were not aligned, right? Craig wants to settle down. He wants to have kids. Paige is at the height of her career. And let me tell you, I'm not here for the Paige slander. I understand how it looks from the outside where people are like, she strung him along. Well, I don't think she strung him along. I think that, 3 years isn't that long of a time. And like I said, in a serious relationship, when you have serious decisions to make, those decisions take time. You can't know that within the first 6 months that you're dating somebody. And I believe that she loved him. I think she probably still does love him. And when you love somebody, you want to see it through. You want to give it your best effort. You don't want to make any rash decisions. And sometimes you ignore your gut feeling because you love this person so much. I think that's what happened with Craig, because we've seen him say things like this on Summer House and Southern Charm, right? Where he's like, I just want to make sure that you are in this for the long haul. And, I saw this resurface clip from Summer House, and he was saying, like, you knew it in your gut, Craig. Like, you knew it in your gut, alluding to that they weren't going to end up together. But here's the thing, Craig was not held hostage in this relationship. If he felt like that was the case, he could have left the relationship earlier. So that's why I don't love the Paige strung him along comments. I think she was trying to figure it out. And I think Craig knew more of what he wanted. And honestly, Paige is at the height of her career. I mean, are you kidding me? I feel like 2024 for her career, I mean, it just skyrocketed, right? And if Paige was to get married and move to Charleston and have kids, the looming question, what would that do to her career? I believe that the right person for you only elevates your success in your career, because it's like a puzzle, like when things are right, you really don't have to work all that hard. Sure, relationships are hard work, but like, they're like, you remember when Lindsay and Carl would always say, like, well, relationships are hard. Relationships are not that hard. They're not Carl and Lindsay level hard. And I feel like, building a future with somebody that is right for you also isn't that hard. It isn't so hard to where you need to give up your career and your independence and all of these things. The right person is a partner to you. They walk alongside of you and you continue to grow in your own personal ways. Now, up until this moment, I guess you could say I've had that criticism of Paige, right? Where I would look at the situation and I'd be like, Paige, marriage does not take away your individuality. It doesn't take away your agency. It doesn't take away your career success. Like I said, the right person helps you and elevates you. But if you're moving, then sometimes it does complicate things. So I don't know. And we've seen that insecurity in the Summer House trailer. She's crying to Sierra about it. So I think that was a big issue. I think Craig will move on fast and get engaged fast. Craig is a certified lover boy. He is. I mean, Naomi was the one and he wanted to spend the rest of his life with her. Natalie was the one and he wanted to spend the rest of his life with her. Paige was the one and he wanted to spend the rest of his life with her. Whoever is next will be the one and he will want to spend the rest of his life with her. I don't know. I feel like we've seen Craig say that he is this hopeless romantic and he wants the white picket fence and he wants the wife and he wants the kids and he put all of this effort into this house and this business, right? And so I feel like maybe he got a little lost in that fantasy world where he was ignoring, the realities of what was going on. He might not have been ignoring them because we have seen him address it, but maybe he was more hopeful than realistic. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. I also just feel like, based on the narratives that were put out, honestly, mostly by Craig, because you see Craig doing all of these interviews recently and he's like talking about how they're getting married and they're going to have babies and they're in it for the long haul. And I almost feel like by doing all of this publicly, he put a lot of pressure on the relationship. And if he was saying these things publicly, I can also imagine that he was saying these things privately, and it might have gave Paige some cold feet, right? So I just want to read this. Craig did this interview with People Magazine. It came out on December 5th, okay? So 3 weeks before Paige announced on Giggly Squad that they were broken up with. This is some of what he said. We're playing the long game. It would be easy to go for instant gratification, but the foundation that we're building is so that we die together one day, not just make it fun. We know we're going to get married one day, and when it happens, it'll be a lot of fun. But whenever that is, who knows? He says once you take yourself out of that pressure cooker and have some perspective, life's a little more simple. There's no reason to put pressure on it. I'm committed to doing what it takes to make it work. We don't know what that looks like. We've got a couple years until we start having kids, then we'll figure it out. I've taken on this normal role of happy wife, happy life. Then he says the goal is when we do start to have kids, we'll be able to stay home with them as much as possible. We had to make the decision. Do we go live a traditional life with someone that's not each other and I find someone in Charleston or not? We decided finding your person is the hard part and then we'll figure it out later. I do think, now I don't know Craig personally, but I do feel like some people lose themselves in relationships. And not that Craig has lost himself completely, because I still see, his individuality with his business and his gardening and, any other thing that you want to talk about. But I do feel like a lot of times Craig ignores his own wants and feelings because he so badly wants the happily ever after. I saw an interview recently where he said he wanted to move to New York. You don't want to move to New York. You want to move to New York because Paige doesn't want to move to Charleston. I mean, have you seen his house? Who would want to leave that house? There are beautiful fountains flowing into a pool. He's got bees. Who's leaving the bees? Not me. So I don't know. I just feel like maybe he talked himself into believing that he wanted to leave all that behind and live this life in New York City with Paige. I think at the end of the day, maybe they will get back together. Sometimes you have to break up to figure it out. Look, David and I broke up. We didn't see each other for 7 years. So sometimes that does happen. Timing is just as important as compatibility. And I said this on my page, earlier this week, that a relationship takes a lot more than just love to be successful. It takes compromise, it takes understanding, it takes seeing people through different seasons of their life. And just because it doesn't end up working out is okay. And I think that's another reason why people are so quick to vilify Paige in the situation, is because Craig is so vocally a lover boy and Paige is not, so it's like it must be Paige's fault since Craig wants all of these things and she isn't, like, mushy gushy. When I just don't think that that's the case. I don't think that there is someone to blame here. I think it's sad. Obviously, we're all sad. But Craig, Paige is going to be a boss for the next 3 years. She's not going to want to be tied down unless she finds another boss in New York City. But I also just think they both will be fine. They both will be totally fine. All right, let's move on to Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. Wow. The tables turn on that one, right? Hoodwink, bamboozled. Although I do have to say, doesn't it feel good to be a little bit right? Because we were onto something. When we saw that press tour play out for It Ends With Us, we were like, something is off here. The vibes are not good. And we were right. Justin Baldoni, who was never with any of the other cast members, they were talking about the film in very different manners. We'll get into that marketing stuff in a bit. But we were not crazy. We were onto something. And I just got to say, I do live for an A-list celebrity lawsuit battle. I just do. I'm so intrigued by it. But, to give you a rundown of the lawsuit, Blake Lively has accused her It Ends With Us director and co-star Justin Baldoni of sexual harassment, claiming his actions caused her and her family severe emotional harm. The complaint details alleged misconduct, including Baldoni discussing Lively's weight, talked about his sex life inappropriately, entered her makeup trailer without permission, including when she was breastfeeding, and more. The allegations also include Baldoni adding unscripted kisses and intimate scenes. At one point, Lively claims he nibbled on her lip while doing a screen kiss. A meeting was held to address issues, and Lively's husband, Ryan Reynolds, was there. Lively also alleges Baldoni engaged in a retaliation smear campaign, including a sophisticated press and digital plan to discredit her when she raised these issues, described in texts and emails included in the filing. The texts between Baldoni's PR people are pretty wild, right? They're talking about being able to bury someone, talking about how, oh, we don't have to do much because the internet is clearly Team Justin. Well, Baldoni's legal team denies these accusations, calling them categorically false, and accuses Lively of attempting to rehash a narrative in the media to harm Baldoni's reputation. Baldoni's lawyer, Brian Friedman, claimed the leaked text in Lively's complaint were taken out of context, accusing her of using dubious PR tactics. Couple things. Does Brian Friedman represent every single celebrity in Hollywood? Is there any other lawyer in LA besides Brian Friedman? Because the guy is booked and busy. When I read the text messages from the PR team, that was like the smoking gun, right? Because these are all allegations, but it's pretty black and white to see text messages being sent back and forth. Now, you'll have some people say, well, Justin wasn't the one writing those text messages. It was these two women on his PR team and blah, blah, blah. But I find, what I was thinking? I struggle so much in this career because I'm afraid to hurt people's feelings. When you have people out there it's their job to bury people in the press. And I'm like, okay, I'm not evil. I'm not going to hell. It could be a lot worse. So Colleen Hoover, the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, and others have come out to say, we support you, Blake. Amber Heard has voiced support for Blake Lively. She implied that Baldoni's PR team, which also worked for Johnny Depp during his 2022 trial against her, may have used smear campaign tactics with her as well. Since then, Justin Baldoni's podcast host has left the show. He's also getting sued by a former publicist. Steph Jones and her agency, Jones Works, filed the suit in New York, claiming Baldoni's publicity team conspired to harm her and steal her clients. Jones says this happened in conjunction with their efforts to launch an alleged smear campaign against Blake Lively. Jones is suing for breach of contract and other grounds. Okay, so all of this came out pretty close to Christmas, which it was on a Friday too, which if you know, it's like media 101. If you don't want a lot of people to pick up on things, it's a Friday media dump. You do it on a Friday when people are busy, they just got off work, they're going to happy hour, whatever. That coupled with the fact that it's the holidays. And I mean, it is dead during the holidays, as you guys know. So I don't feel like people have said, oh, this is just for attention, whatever. I don't feel like Blake Lively did this for attention because those decisions alone kind of are counterproductive to that narrative. Now, as soon as I read this, I was like, he's countersuing. There is no way. There's no way, especially when you think back to what was coming out at the time of the movie, right? There were a lot of these rumors that Blake was overstepping her boundary as, Justin was the director. We heard there was a whole other cut of the movie that was Blake Lively's cut, that Ryan Reynolds was involved adding scenes, and that there was some creative differences there, right? So I'm thinking that his countersuit, which is going to come out in 2025, it is 2025, it's going to come out soon, is going to deal a lot with maybe Blake overstepping those boundaries and potentially, overstepping legal boundaries when it comes to Justin being the director and owning the rights of the movie, right? So his lawyer did say they will countersue. He says, Brian Friedman, of course, the OG. He claims the lawsuit will reveal real evidence that exposes unethical behavior and media manipulation. He told Deadline, it is going to shock everyone who has been manipulated into believing I hate when they use big words. I'm not a lawyer. Believing a false narrative, okay? It will be supported by real evidence and tell the truth story. In over 30 years of practicing, I have never seen this level of unethical behavior intentionally fueled through media manipulation. Baldoni's team plans to argue that Lively's actions were a strategy to salvage her reputation following negative press during the film's promotion. So I've said this on my page, and A lot of people agreed, but I also got some backlash, which I'm learning to just embrace backlash, But when it comes to Blake Lively's lawsuit, jury's still out in my mind, honestly. It is, right? Because I wasn't there and none of us were there. And I called it the know-it-all era. I feel like we're in the know-it-all era where everybody thinks that they know everything when you don't. You probably don't even know 5% of it. And I talk about this a lot on the pod when it comes to reality TV personalities, where you see this edited version of someone, things copy and pasted, frankenbitten or whatever, and people want to go and say these people are monsters or that they're God. And it's like, nobody is ever as bad as you think they are, and nobody's ever as good as you think they are. So I really just want to see this play out because as of right now, their allegations, they're terrible allegations. And like, I can't imagine. I mean, I think if anything, we can all agree that it wasn't a good workplace. It seems like there was definitely not a good atmosphere on that set. But I also just find it really funny that I see a lot of people that were instantly villainizing Blake Lively back in the summer are the first people to be out here ripping Justin Baldoni to shreds. And that to me is like, okay, do you just want attention or what is it? Because the way that you flip on a dime, and I understand there's new information and what have you, but back when Blake Lively was getting like slaughtered on social media, I also was like, this is not cool. What, you don't like Blake Lively because she had a bad interview and she's talking about her hair care line, while promoting It Ends With Us? Okay, like you can be annoyed with that if you want. But to like call her the devil because of it's wild. Like I said, nobody is ever as good as you think they are or as bad as you think they are. It's like, calm down, Sue Ellen. It's going to be all right. I'm ready to see the Justin Baldoni countersuit. It's going to be juicy. And like I said, I mean, who knows? It might go to trial. It might be another Amber Heard, Johnny Depp level, of prolific celebrity trials. We're going to get that Netflix documentary. Can't wait for that. So like I said, I don't really have any opinions about the lawsuit until I see what the countersuit is going to say. But here are some things that I do have an opinion on. And I think a lot of people did have an opinion on it. The marketing campaign for It Ends With Us was weird. It was weird. Wear your florals, grab your girlfriends, and go watch this movie about domestic violence. That was the marketing strategy put forth. And we did see Justin Baldoni go about it in a different way. I don't know whose decision it was to do that marketing strategy. I don't think it was Blake Lively's. But that was weird. Like, I have an opinion on that. That was weird. The viral interview with Blake Lively was also weird. But I didn't put too much stock into it because everybody has a bad day. Everybody has an off day. Everybody doesn't put their best foot forward 100% of the time. So like I said, for people to watch one interview of Blake Lively and to be like, oh, she's the worst ever. It's like, you don't actually know. Can we leave the know-it-all era in 2024 and formulate opinions when you feel like you actually do know? I don't know. There's two sides to every story, and the truth is usually somewhere in the middle. So, like I said, interested to see what Justin Baldoni's countersuit is going to say. If those things happen to Blake Lively, that's really just sad and unfortunate. And it's like, you look forward to doing this movie and then it just ends. It's just like crashes and burns. And I feel like that happened to both Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. And I'm just ready. I'm ready to start 2025 out with some lawsuits. I'm going to stay away from the comment section of this YouTube video because I imagine people probably aren't going to like what I had to say. But I'm sticking to my truth. It's a new year, all right? I'm saying my opinion and I mean it. All right. I hope you feel a little better if you're feeling a little groggy after staying up too late. Don't forget Bravo Friday. We got some tea from Madison LeCroy about JT and the season of Southern Charm. So make sure you're subscribed to the Patreon Patreon, patreon.com/MorgansPopTalks. Leave a review, a little 5-star, boop, boop, a little review-a-loo. If not, I'll see you next week. Love you like a kiss.